Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about today is solving equations with rational exponents, which basically just means exponents that are a variable that's raised to a fractional exponent. So the first thing we want to do is remember that if we have a fraction 5/3, if we multiply by its reciprocal, it equals 1. So same thing, if we have a fraction 1/9, if we multiply that by the reciprocal, 9/1, it equals 1. If we have the fraction -2/7, we have to multiply negative to give us a positive 1. Negative times negative equals a positive. So -2/7 times -7/2 is going to equal 1. And now I just want to remind you about our exponent rules. And so here, if we have a power raised to a power, we're just going to multiply both of those numbers. So here, if we have 8 to the second power, then raised to the fourth power, we're just going to multiply 2 times 4, which gives us 8. Same thing here. If we have x to the -4th raised to the 8th power, that's just going to be x to the -32nd. And we're not going to leave a negative exponent in our answer, so we're going to convert that to a positive exponent, which would be 1/32. And then next, remember if we are given a fractional exponent, the denominator of our fraction here, I'll highlight this in blue. The denominator of our fraction ends up becoming the index of our radical, and the numerator of our fraction here ends up becoming what we raise that to. So here's some examples over here to the side. If we have x to the 5/2 power, that's really like we are taking the square root of x and then raising it to the 5th power. And if we have x to the 1/3 power, that's really just the same thing as the cube root of x. Yes, it is raised to the first power, but we know anything raised to the first power is just itself. So that's just going to be the cube root of x. So let's go through a few problems using these so that we can solve for x. So here we see that x is raised to the 2/3 power, and we're trying to get at x to the first power, which means we're solving for x. So here we're going to raise this to the reciprocal of our rational exponent, which would be to the 3/2 power. And if we raise the left-hand side of the equation to the 3/2 power, we also have to raise the right. So 2/3 times 3/2 gives us x to the first power. And then over here, we're really taking the square root of 64, and then we're going to cube that. So the square root of 64 is just 8, and 8 cubed is going to be 512. Okay, so let's keep going. This one right here, if we have x to the 5/3 power, we have to raise it to a power to ultimately get x to the first power. So we're going to raise that to the 3/5 power. And so on the left-hand side, it's just going to give us x to the first power, or just x. And then on the right-hand side, we're taking the 5th root of 32 and then cubing it. And the 5th root of 32, which you do need to know, by the way, the 5th root of 32 is 2, so we have 2 cubed, which is just going to be 8. And we'll do one more together before you all practice on your own. So x to the -2/3 power, if we want to get this to x to the first power, we've got to raise this to the -3/2 power. And whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other. So we end up with x to the first power, and I'm probably going to take care of that negative exponent first. So I'm going to write this as 1/64, and that's raised to the 3/2 power. Now we know that the 2 in the denominator tells me I'm taking the square root of 1/64, and then I'm raising all of that to the 3rd power. Now we had already in the first example figured out, well, we know that the square root of 64 is just 8. So we have 1/8 cubed, and then from the first example, we know that 8 cubed is 512. So we have 1/512 for this one. So why don't you pause the video and work the next 3 and come back and check your answers. So I've got all the answers here for you, so I would suggest that you check these. You can pause it to continue having this on your screen so that you can check these answers and my work versus what you've done.